Reverend Adam Sutton is one of our favorite inspirational speakers and singers. Wonderful singer. He's also a sought-after life coach and corporate trainer who's become a new thought leader in the fields of positive psychology and practical spirituality. Adam brings a deep passion and commitment to helping individuals and organizations become their very best by bringing down-to-earth, real-time, and real-life approaches to every aspect of your life. So everyone, give Adam Sutton a warm Cape Cod welcome.
I love that bio because it reminds me who I am, and I think that's why we all come to church, is to remember who we really are. And if you've been with me before in this church or any other, we always start with another moment of meditation because it's what I need to pull myself open and into spirit. So if I would invite you to close your eyes. Let's just take a breath in and out. Loving Spirit, Creator God, we know that all good is flowing now. We know that the words that flow to and through me now out into the congregation rest and connect where they are meant to, resonate and allow for wholeness. Nothing to do, nothing to fix, perfect and whole as we are. Simply saying, Amen. So when asked for a title for this talk, I called it Trust, Jump, Breathe, or Jump, Trust, Breathe, or Breathe, Trust, Jump. Because I see this as a three-step process. Let me take you back. In 2010, June, I jumped. I left the job that I had. It was probably the first real job, if you were to ask my parents. The first real career job that I had. I'd been working for Harvard University for about 10 years. And the economic downturn had hit in 2009. And they had asked for volunteers, I'll put that in air quotes, to step into a voluntary severance package. It felt like $1 million. It was $15,000. It didn't last that long, but it felt like $1 million to me. So I put my hand up. At the time, I was leading a church. I was leading Unity Cambridge in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I was working already only 80% time. So it was a little bit of an easier jump. I knew there was a tiny bit of a glide path before me, and I was terrified. And the reason why I jumped is because I kept hearing this voice, and it was not a still, small voice, a voice that said, here's what's next. And if you don't follow what's next, you won't be able to trust. You will not be able to continue to breathe in and out freely with integrity. You must jump now. About 2 months after I actually was asked to leave because it was a voluntary layoff, even though I put my hand up, I was preaching at Unity of Norwalk in Connecticut. First gig after my layoff, my confidence shaken, wondering how will I ever figure out, one, how to make a living, two, how to put together with integrity my own self-worth. Because I had attached, as many of us do, my worth to my work and to showing up at a job and being able to go out to family in Michigan. And if anybody knows Myers department store, right? It's massive department stores, right? I was at a Myers maybe a year earlier than that, and I took great delight in the checkout counter in Kalamazoo, Michigan, when they asked for an ID. I handed them my Harvard ID. I thought I was really special in that moment. And you know what happened? The checkout woman actually said this, no lie. She rang her bell, and there's like 27 of them at Myers, and she said, this guy works at Harvard. And it was a very big deal, as I wanted it to be in that moment. I've evolved just a tiny bit since then. So I had lost that association. I had stepped out from what I've called stepping out from behind the shield of academia in that moment, and the shield sort of over my heart that reminded me that I was worth something because I had a job. And suddenly I was standing at Unity of Norwalk where I'd been invited by my reverend friend, Sean Moninger. And I sang a tune, and I did what I'm doing today. And I gave a talk very similar, talking about what it takes to trust to move into what's next, even when you don't know what the net looks like or it hasn't appeared altogether. And I talked my heart out, and I sang my heart out, and afterwards there were 6 or 7 or 8 people by the door who wanted to talk to me, and so I dutifully stood and I shook hands and I hugged, which is one of my favorite parts after the service. And there was a woman who was rather quiet, and she was sort of hanging back, a little bit shy. And she quietly said to me, "You know that talk that you gave? I know you don't have a job now. Do you think you could come and do that where I work?" And in the moment, I remember thinking, that's delightful. Thank you. It's very sweet. Is it the Rotary Club? There's probably 23 people, you know. And I said, let's talk afterwards. So I finished the reception line. Afterwards, she comes over to me and she says to me, again, very quietly, "Would you come and do this where I work?" And I said, "Well, where do you work?" She said, "GE." I said, "What?" She said, "GE." I said, "Where GE?" She said, "GE Corporate in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's down the road. Have you heard of it?" 2 months prior, knowing that I was leaving Harvard, I had hired a friend who actually had been working in the church with me. She was good at websites, had a website, got a URL, launched a company called workingintegrity.com, looking at mind, body, and spirit in the workplace. I suddenly had my first client, General Electric. A month later, I was standing at the GE Corporate Learning Center, made famous by Jack Welch and many others. This is like the seat of corporate learning in this country, or was at that time. Shaking in my boots. I remember doing a workshop that I made up on the spot. I remember taking the handheld mic, because I couldn't figure out how to use the system in this massive building, and taking my phone and putting some yoga music on and doing this, so that they could hear it, and leading a meditation. And I remember looking back at the GE corporate learning people, and this is what they were doing. But they went with it. We had a delightful time. It was a lot of fun. I never got asked back. That's totally okay. About 3 months later, I got together with a friend, and then a month after that, met another friend, and the three of us formed a company. That company exists till today. And I intend in the next week or so to jump again. And I feel even more terrified than I did then, and even more ready. And I'll tell you how I got there. I got there by taking a trip down memory lane, looking at my own resiliency toolkit, and remembering that I have jumped many times before without a net, and I have survived. In fact, each time God has asked me to jump, and I have actually done so, I've done some preparation first. I'm not that foolish. I've thought about things in advance. I've thought about what it might look like. I talk often about my husband, Edwin, so he's often here with us, even when he's not physically present. We had that challenging, dreaded conversation last Sunday when he asked me, what happens when the salary ends if you decide to step away from the corporation that you co-own? And I took a beat, and I wanted to go into a whole sort of Unity-sponsored conversation about manifesting new reality, and what he wanted to talk about was the spreadsheet and how we were actually going to pay the rent. And I trusted, I breathed, I looked at him, and I jumped. And for about 4 hours, he drew numbers on a sheet, I drew numbers on a sheet. We realized how much our life actually costs us, how much stuff we bring into our experience that may or may not be necessary, and then realized where we could cut. And still, I'll tell you, the number was pretty big, bigger than I imagined. And I know that God provides. How I know that is because I have done a lot of other steps to prepare myself to figure out how to jump. So a year from June of 2010, when I was preaching in Norwalk, Connecticut, almost to the day, so jump ahead a year, we've got the company going, there are 3 partners, some of it's going well, some of it's really challenging. I had bought a Groupon on a crazy moment one day to jump out of a plane to do a tandem skydive. You had exactly a year to use it. I remember when I left my job at Harvard, I thought, well, I will get this Groupon and I will prove to myself that I can jump out of a plane and really, not just metaphorically, spiritually, but actually jump. I also thought it was the butchest thing I may have ever done in my life, and I thought, I can totally do this, I can do this, I can do this. I really had to convince myself. So, no lie, because I can't get away with that up here. Exactly a year later, I had 1 day left to use this Groupon or it would expire. And I'm motivated by a bargain like anybody else. So I called my 2 business partners at the time and I said, I'm not coming in today because I need to go jump out of a plane. And they thought I was kidding. I drove by myself. I did not tell Edwin I was doing this. Probably not the best thing. We weren't married at the time. I did not tell him. I got in the car. I drove my little Jetta out to Pepperell, Massachusetts. I got into a plane and I jumped. Terrifying. But I survived. And when I landed, I thought to myself, no, that wasn't so bad. And I've gone back a couple of times since. A year later, I jumped, and I knew I was going to be okay. Why was I okay? Because it was a tandem jump, meaning I did not do it alone. They explained to me, you're going to pretty much be cradled by whatever his name was. And at the time, I thought, that's not so bad. And the entire idea, right, you get in this plane, literally you are sitting on your tandem rider's lap, who has had many more rides than you. You are connected in 6 or 7 different places with a harness, right? And then you actually, this is why it comes in so handy, you have no choice but to jump. Because when it gets to be your turn and you see the bottom of the plane drop out at 13,000 feet and you think there is no way I'm going to be able to move these legs to get to that hole, it was about 2 feet. You have absolutely no choice because his name was John, I now remember, because I hated him in the moment. John just stood up, and I'm on his lap, and John jumps. And you don't really jump. It's not like television. You sort of fall like this. You just fall, and then the parachute hits. And for me, there's a metaphorical parachute that is waiting to hold me. It's waiting to hold all of us. It's already deployed. That is the Spirit of God. That is the presence of God that watches over us. And in that moment, I had a physical understanding of the power of a practical spirituality applied in a moment of need. I had a physical understanding of practical spirituality applied in a desperate moment of need. I needed to be pulled up or die, and I felt God, through this parachute, pull me up into the sky, and the view was stunning. A view I could not have seen had I not jumped and then held. This is what I remember halfway through the conversation with my husband last week, when we're both in tears and fear, trying to figure out what the numbers will look like and how do we make them happen. And what I did was remind him, well, remember that time I jumped? Remember that time I jumped? And remember we thought we couldn't find the right apartment, and suddenly an apartment that was about $1,000 less than it should be suddenly arrived on our doorstep? And remember the time that we jumped and we thought that there would be no way that your health would turn around completely? And last week, thank God, praise God, we came back from Beth Israel, and my husband is completely cancer-free. So there is a parachute. That parachute is already deployed. But you must do some work. You must figure out how you partner with what you call spirit or God or light or hope, whatever that is. And I do that on a daily basis. My parachute training is meditation every morning. Only 10 minutes. But 10 minutes that I force myself to do at 5:20 a.m. Maybe not the time for some of you, but for me, 5:20 to 5:30 is 10 minutes of quietly sitting. I do some Nadi Shodhana, Hindu breathing, and then I just sit. And in that moment, what comes are the answers that we are so desperate for. What's next for me? What does work look like? Is this relationship going to work out? Should I live here? Should I not live here? Do I buy this car or that car? We are constantly spinning with our wondering, and the only way that I know how to move into that and quiet it so that we are in the stillness together is to breathe. But in the breath comes also the anxiety. Because if I'm breathing, my heart is open. And if my heart is open, I am not stuffing my feelings, I am in my feelings. And some of my feelings, as they come and go, are anxiety and fear. And so when I'm in a place of anxiety and fear, I look around for some external outside of me reminders. I've done the work inside, then I get to look outside, and I look to find things that I can trust. And I look for signs. And I encourage you to look for signs, because they show up. This week, I have had a different prayer of God because I have been in a very challenged place trying to make a clear decision. and I've come to understand, and I will give you this understanding if it's useful for you, there is never 100% clarity. There is never 100% clarity. Do I stay with this person? Do I leave? Do I keep this job? Do I go somewhere else? You will never be 100% clear. I think the best that I could hope for and that I've gotten to is about 95%, which is not bad. But what I need are external reminders. Why? Because I forget. Because I forget. So this week I prayed every night, starting last Sunday night, so a week ago tonight, God, I need direct, clear signs about what to do next. I need them to be non-negotiable. I need them to be so clear that if I were to show them to somebody else, they would say, that's incredible, or that's amazing, how clear. I need it to look like that. I've been told other people tell me this. They ask for signs, they pray to God for deep clarity like this, and I think, no, I don't want to push God in any particular direction. But I did. Every day, the clarity of the signs was beyond measure. Beyond measure. And the only reason I'm not going to give you all the details is because this gets videotaped and put out into the world, and we are a very private little community. But what I will share with you is that every single day, for 6 days, there has been some kind of very interesting reading. Yes, I read Astrology Zone. It's one of my favorite apps. If you put it right out there, yes, I'm into astrology. This is the reading today. No lie, today's reading. I'm trying to ask God, do I jump? What does it look like? Will I be okay? This is today's reading. I read it this morning. The week will begin with the sweet full moon on April 29th, falling in your house of privacy, rest, and creative projects, where you work out of view from others. You may be ready to show your creation to the world this week. The sun will be in perfect harmony with Saturn, ensuring that what you do at this time will turn out well. Let me say that again. The sun will be in perfect harmony with Saturn, ensuring that what you do at this time will turn out well. Jupiter, your ruler, and Pluto will be in fine conversation, giving you the power to make a very dramatic change that will increase your net worth. Saturn will also signal the moon, so your financial picture will brighten substantially, and a steady stream of money will begin to flow in and bring you relief. And so it is, and so it is, we say to the universe. I'll give you a final one, a final sign. Again, silly, I'm looking at an app. Do I think all of you need to be led by astrology in your daily reading? Yes. No. Is that approved unity reading? No. Yes. Who knows? But today, I got up after reading that, and I thought, it's not good enough. I want more. Give me more. Give me another sign. Give me some more clarity. Really be clear to me. And I looked over at my table, and I realized I had 3 or 4 copies of Science of Mind magazine. I don't know if people ever read Science of Mind, Divine Science, Science of Mind. Centers for Spiritual Living is sort of a sister New Thought, right? I have been connected to Ernest Holmes and Science of Mind as much as I have Unity over the years. There's lots of very similar thought and lots of crossover. And this came in February, and I didn't even look at it. It got added to the pile. I pulled it out, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I talk today about trust? And the very cover is Erica and Roger Teal. The Teals run the largest Center for Spiritual Living in the country. It's Mile High Church in Denver. This is the cover. I'll read it to you if you can't read it from up here. It says, "Their life of trust." The Teals, their life of trust. And I open it up. And there is an entire list. Here's her list. Erica's list. And guess what Erica does for a living, the minister's wife, Erica Teal, who is also a minister. Seriously, did not know this. She runs her own training and development group that brings spirituality into the workplace through improv and fun. Okay, serious. And she says, here's the guide: say yes, listen, be present, see life as a gift, know that there are no mistakes, let go of control, and have fun. So there are signs for you around every corner. The reason we don't pick that up is because there is part of our process that isn't open. There's part of our mind that gets involved and says, life and this experience in this moment needs to look this way, not this way. So therefore, anything that we perceive doesn't look the way we don't think it should gets put aside. We have a part of our brain that are called the reticular activators. The reticular activators are the part of the brain that focus once you give it a task. So if you're looking to buy a yellow car, as you know I did a year ago or so, I'm seeing every single yellow car, right? This is true of good and of miracles as well. If there's an experience of trust, if there's an experience of good, if there's an experience of the holy, as there was for me this morning driving down here, for the first time ever I reached out to an old friend and asked if he would be a prayer partner. He knows that I'm a minister. Sometimes that can be a little bit intimidating. He wasn't intimidated. He called me up, and at 7:30 in my car driving down here to this church for the first time ever, I had a friend who's not part of my spiritual community join me in prayer. He's going through a lot. He's divorcing his wife. They have 3 kids. He prayed. I prayed. My heart was wide open. I couldn't stop crying. That experience allows me to come here and have an open vibration, but more importantly and selfishly, and I will give you this, it creates a selfish expectation for more good, for more open-heartedness. If I have that experience this morning, then I know, oh, we are here for good. We are here to connect. We are here to have a spiritual experience in these human bodies. We are here to trust. And there is something we trust beyond ourselves. There is a sure metaphysical presence. There is an understanding and a knowing that we bring as New Thought teachers and students, all of us teachers and students in every moment, where we know that there is more out there. And we know that if we jump, we know that we will be caught. It might be terrifying for a minute or a week or a month, but sooner or later, we will get caught and pulled, and there will be a new view. Trust me, there will be a new view. There is a parachute holding you now, with grace and with love. There is a deep and holy presence that connects all of us, that actually knows what is best for you. Trust it. Breathe into it. And jump. And you'll be okay. And let's breathe that in and out. Knowing again, God, that this presence within us, making us whole, connecting all of us through breath and heart, reminding us that there is only love. And when we lean into the parachute, we are pulled closer to heaven, and we see more clearly. And all is well. Amen.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.